Waka, siano maka, hino wa wata, hino mau saka. You're here for the analytics. That's what you're here for. You're here for the analytics. The analytics, what you're here for. Welcome to Survivor Analytics. I'm here with my co-hosts, two guys who have very different experiences with Survivor. We have one person who's watched every single season of Survivor, and if we're being honest, he kind of looks like he's watched them multiple times, okay? You've seen him on TikTok. You've seen him with all his little rankings, and I have disagreed with damn near every single motherfucking one of them. This guy hasn't gotten a single fucking thing right for how many of the seasons he's watched. Not one time has he gotten a single thing right. But you know what? You love him anyway, because at least he's got a perspective. And if you've listened to Joe or Jeff at all, you know one thing. You gotta have a perspective on Survivor. And I got mad respect for him. And on the other side, we have a man who, honestly, I'm not sure what the fuck he was doing during the pandemic when the rest of us were doing our damn due diligence and watching Survivor. I don't know. I don't know what he was doing. He was still watching Blue's Clues or something. I have no idea. But now he's caught up. He's done a couple seasons of Survivor, 48, 49, and 50. Is that where we're at now?
No, we've covered from 44 on, and then we've done
44
some old seasons. So I've seen 10 at this point, which is
okay.
So
okay,
I might be the voice of the people,
number now.
But yeah,
you're beating most of the people that are out there. Okay, and so we have you, and then we have me, just a lowly Survivor player. That's what we have here for you today. If you don't know, hi, it's Shauhin from Survivor Season 48. Let's get it started, shall we?
Yeah, let's jump right in. That was great.
Welcome
I didn't
to Survivor
expect
Analytics.
to get roasted right out of the gate. I didn't think I was going to be catching strays at the very beginning. And honestly, it's justified on your end. I think I spent most of my coverage of 48 talking about how I thought Joe was going to win. And that was one of my biggest misses that I've ever put on social media. But I keep all those videos up there. There are parts of me that are saying, oh, maybe I should take him down so that way I'm more correct for people.
No.
I got to keep all the takes up there. Every video of me saying that Joe is the locked winner of that season.
Yes.
I don't stand by the take anymore, but I feel like we got you on the podcast at the perfect time. This is the episode that's very connected to 48. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, this is 48 incarnate in an episode, man. We start with, Camilla's reaction to, and I don't know if we want to go over some stuff before we get there. So I don't know if we go in order or how you guys work it, but
we usually kind of go in order, like ish, and then we jump around a little too much, and then we say, we'll get to it later.
Yeah, we normally go like tribe by tribe, but before I guess hopping into the episode itself, I did want to ask you just a couple general questions about season 50 at large. Like, you competed a year before the filming of Survivor 50. Like, when you were on 48, were people talking about which of us is going to get onto 50? Like, were you thinking at that time it's going to be that trio of Kyle, Camilla, and Joe going on the season?
During that year, we had a party at Joe Hunter. Joe threw us a Halloween party. Okay, so we get back a couple months later. Joe, at his own house, puts on this huge Halloween party, all the decorations, has us over in his home. And that's a lot of effort and, brings over a lot of us to his house. And at the time, I remember talking to a bunch of the cast. I think the majority of the cast was there. And I think the thoughts were very different than what ended up happening. I think we all kind of thought that Joe was going to get a call. That seemed pretty obvious from what happened, the Emmy winning moment. Like, we were all there for how powerful that thing was. And I think that you would have been hard pressed to not think Joe was going to maybe at least get a phone call. I think Camilla certainly had a pretty good shot, and we were talking about that. I think that Kyle was probably the biggest surprise, because I don't know that we thought that a winner would get an invite back out there, but makes sense. I mean, the guy was an awesome game player, and I was surprised that they put both of them back out there on the island together for sure.
Yeah.
And at the time, I also thought that, I have an ego, and I thought that I had a great game out there. I thought that I played really well, getting taken out right before the finale episode. You didn't know how the edit was going to turn out, and a lot of what I thought was going to be in the show was my and Joe's relationship. That at the end of the day, that relationship was a huge turning point in the game for me. And because when you're playing the game, you really see it from your perspective. I thought that would be more of the episode of the season, is me and Joe working together to do all of these different moves. And then at the last second, I get blindsided. And then that blindside kind of shapes the rest of the season. But, that's not how the tale was told. And so I think about, a couple episodes into the season, I realized like, oh yeah, okay, so I'm definitely not going to be getting a phone call. It is clearly going to be Joe for sure. And then I thought Camilla would have a shot, but I didn't know about Kyle.
I don't
think Kyle was for a while either.
Yeah,
three players is crazy. Yeah, for sure.
And then for it to shape up like it has already, we're 2 weeks in, and it feels like
it's all 48.
Kyle,
poor
is
Kyle.
So tragic. And
if he did not win $1 million, I think people would have felt a lot worse for him and Savannah, right? Like, I think if you don't have those two people that won $1 million, and not for nothing, but Jenna's life completely changed by being on season 1. That when you were on Survivor in season 1, you had instant fame, instant credibility. You could go kind of do a lot of other things. Obviously, women were treated pretty poorly back then by the media, but okay, cool. So we have these 3 people who go home, and obviously Kyle's is devastating. It's one of those things that's like, man, that was a pretty huge loss. And for that tribe and for Kyle himself, like, he has to leave his wife and job and put all these things on hold and go out there and try and give it another run. And this dude absolutely loves the game of Survivor. You don't get to where you're at without loving the game of Survivor like that. So yeah, kind of a devastating moment for sure. And then of course we get to see Camilla's reaction to that devastation.
Yeah, I did not expect Camilla to be in tears. I knew Joe was going to be crying when the Kyle news broke, but I feel like Camilla's reputation, at least what the edit shows us on Survivor, is that she's the one that loves running people over with the bus. She's kind of the cutthroat, strategic personality of that partnership. So it really showed just how close the two of them were when she was in tears. I was curious to kind of hear your perspective on Kyle's game on 50, as short as it was. Like, do you feel like the game that he played on 50 was similar to his performance on 48, or how do you think the version of Kyle differed across that 1 year?
I think,
and those 20 minutes.
Yeah,
I think it's hard to kind of judge someone's game when you get maybe a total of 3 minutes of screen time for them.
Yeah. But that's what we work with every season here.
Yeah, 72 hours of time out there, and you kind of get 3 minutes. But I think he was from the edit in a pretty good position. I think he was playing a similar-ish game, but maybe with more confidence. I think he looked like he was more confident out there in this first episode than he did after our first episode, and it makes sense. Like, after our first episode, he was useless, right? Like, he came across like a horrible, because he lost the thing, he lost the other thing. Like, he was supposed to be the one getting up the mud wall, and they couldn't even get a single person up there before we had gotten back and finished the challenge. Then he goes to like defend his honor and gets beaten because of his own rushing, right? Like, he let a guy with one arm essentially beat him, and comes back with nothing and still mud covered face. And then, okay, cool, starts gaining confidence throughout the season. But in this one, it looked like he started kind of where he left off, with a bunch of confidence. And then, Colby cost him his spot. It's a huge bummer.
Yeah. Well, so should we start kind of working our way in here?
Sure.
Clyde, do you want to start with Vaatu here?
Yeah, so we can go tribe by tribe, starting with the Vaatu tribe. And this is one of the reasons why I was so excited to have you on for this week, because we learned all about Aubrey's strategic positioning this week. We kind of knew that she was on the bottom of the tribe, but now we get some deeper insights into it all. And Aubrey is so isolated from the rest of Vaatu to the point where they are creating these operations where they're going to keep Aubrey occupied at the beach while other members like Genevieve and Rizzo search her bag back at camp. Shauhin, you have experience searching people's bags. You did that in the swap section of the game with Kyle, and you missed his idol during that time. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on this. Like, What was Genevieve doing? How did your approach differ from hers when you were going through that bag?
I actually think it's the same approach in a weird way. It may have been executed better, but I got a lot of smack for searching Kyle's bag in front of Camilla, but I did that because I wanted to build a relationship with Camilla. Like, the reason behind searching the bag in front of Camilla is to go, hey, look, I'm coming for him, not you, so that when we get back going forward, we can work together. And if you actually go back and watch, I have a bone to pick here real quick. If you go back and watch, Kyle says that his thing was in his shoe and the shoe was in his bag. Bullshit. If you watch, you see when I put the bag back down, Kyle's shoes are sitting next to the bag. So if they were in his shoes, then that was not true. And I think his idol was on him. And Kyle, I have a bone to pick with you about that. Because when we were out there, he told me he had it in his pocket. And then on the edit, it said that it was in his bag. But whatever. Doesn't matter. Either way, makes no difference. They didn't find anything, just like they didn't find anything here, right? Because they had searched it too early. They searched it, and then after that is when she got her advantage, is my understanding from the edit.
Yeah. It was purely based on the timeline of it all, which is pretty crazy. Yeah. If they search that bag, 12 hours later, we could be looking at an entirely different Vatu tribe. And the way that the edit is setting this up, it feels like that idol's going to play a large role in the game at some point in the future.
And really interesting that, I do think that doing stuff like this is a great way to build connections. It's also a great way to set yourself up for a disaster when someone actually reveals, hey, just so you know, all four of us got together and searched your bag and they're all lying to you. And like, the problem with that is you kind of have to execute that quickly so that you can plant that memory of like, hey, remember how your bag was maybe a little messed up? And I don't know how that works maybe 24 hours later.
I think it also depends on the person whose bag you're searching. Like, if you search Joe's bag and then leak it back to Joe later, he's going to be completely done with you. But I feel like
if you search my bag, I'll be all right.
Yeah, I think Aubrey's kind of the same way. I think she's a savvy strategic player, someone that would understand why you would go through and search their bag. All right, I'm surprised that the old schoolers were willing to do it, though. That feels like it's against the ethical code of someone like Colby or Stephanie.
Yeah.
All right, I need, as the voice of the people who's never seen an Aubrey season, there's a reference in here as she's talking about how she's kind of on the outs. She's on this tribe of...
She's always on the outs.
She references crashing out in the past, and there's a very brief cutaway to her past season or one of her past seasons. In like 15 seconds. What's her deal?
I think Aubrey is a wonderful representative of those of us with high social anxiety and also high intelligence and also high performance and also high analysis. That when all of those things are happening at the same time, and now you've taken away all creature comforts, no food, no good sleep. You're surrounded by people that you don't know, that don't care about you, that you know are lying to you. Your paranoia is now up. And you see her in the episode do something that I don't think that I've seen her do in the past. And it's take a bunch of deep breaths. And you see her in the episode taking that giant deep, doing some breath work. And I love that because that's one of the things that I did before I went out there. It's one of the things that I teach today, to this very day. If people are going into a big meeting or you're going to do a keynote speech or a public speaking address, one of the things that I teach my clients is, hey, 5 gigantic deep breaths, you can reset your parasympathetic nervous system, and it's free and you can take it with you and it's not addictive and it doesn't have side effects and you don't have to take a fucking beta blocker. You just use your own body to start communicating with yourself. And for someone who has high anxiety, someone who is a high function, someone who's super high functioning, really, really smart, her knowing, hey, this has happened to me before and I'm not going to let it happen to me this time, shows, I think, a level of self-reflection that is awesome to see out there in someone who's going back for Survivor 50. And yeah, I love that. I mean, I do that shit every single day. It absolutely changed my life. Taking giant deep breaths changed my life.
It was really cool to see her talk about just, hey, this is hard on a draining physical endurance level. And
Totally.
especially if you're not Rizzo and you're built of energy, you have to take like steps away. You have to take breaths. You know, I really liked seeing that. And I feel like Aubrey, Clyde, correct me if I'm wrong, went pretty high in our fantasy draft.
Yeah, I took her in the first round.
Yeah, you really liked her. And so I'm not sure, coming out of this, I feel like she's either going to be gone real fast and Christian's going to have that Billie Eilish boomerang idol in 2 seconds, or she's going to go a long way. But
yeah, I agree with you. She's either going to flame out or make a deep run. It's going to be that for either her or for Genevieve. I feel like we've been building in the edit these two titans eventually going after each other, and it's really only a matter of time. And what's interesting about Aubrey, too, is that she competed 3 times in a very short stretch. She competes on 32, 34, and 38. So I think that's like a 4-year period, I want to say. I need to check the actual numbers on it all. But she plays a lot in a condensed period of time. It's been a little bit since Aubrey's been back out on the island. So I think it makes sense that she's reverting back to an extent to her co-wrong version of herself.
So crazy, man. 32, 34,
just how many
38.
times she competed.
Wow.
So, and I think it really varies contestant to contestant. I think you see some players who come out of the gates hot and they're able to take control of a tribe and they flame out later. Aubrey's kind of the opposite. She's more of a slow burn. She struggles in those early sections of the game. She's someone that is typically at risk of getting voted out early because she's not the best challenge competitor. But if you give her that leeway and give her that opportunity to make some moves happen, she can totally make a deep run. So now that I've seen Aubrey overcome the odds like she did in Co-Wrong, I feel way better about her going deep into the season.
She made Final 3 in Co-Wrong?
Yeah, she got second place in Co-Wrong to Michelle, and I'm still butthurt about it to this day. I'm still
winners win, bro. Let that shit go.
I know.
Winners win. It's that simple.
I know, but that's what honestly, makes the show fun.
Can I tell you?
If Clyde let go of winners winning, he'd have no content. It's like 40% of it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what the real thing is that really flipped my brain about winners win, and it's social players. People with amazing social game always get nuked by the edit. You cannot see how amazing Mitch's social game is in an edited television show because it takes an hour and a half to have an amazingly deep conversation. And so what we have is a bunch of fucking Survivor players that are getting all these great edits because they're these quick strategists. And that's great. That's awesome. It's good television. But you can't show, unfortunately, we don't have like the live feeds. You can't show how Mitch worms his way into your soul and you just desperately want to give him $1 million. You cannot see how well I used my eyebrows to make people fall in love with me. It's not possible to understand how close I could make people feel to me in an edited television show like this. And so it is one of those things that I'm sure must have been super frustrating for Michelle because she is clearly a social player. If you have watched her on The Challenge or since then, it's like you're watching a social dynamo at work, making people fall in love with her, making sure that they now are watching out for her. And weirdly, like this is something that Cirie has as well. But Cirie also has the strategic chops and is also an insane confessionalist. And so we see a lot more of her throughout a season than we saw from Michelle on her run or from, what was it, Natalie White on season 19. Kenzie got the edit of a lifetime. Kenzie got the edit of a lifetime on 46, but that's another situation where it's like that's social. That was social game. That wasn't strategic game. That was social game that won her the edit and some jury bitterness or whatever, like whatever you want to say there. But Natalie White, you're mad about Natalie White winning?
Listen, so that's Samoa, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first season that we ever covered. So that's the first season that Jack ever watched on the pod.
That's my first season
I ever watched. Yeah.
Okay, So
I was 2 episodes into season 1. I leaned over to my best friend Aaron and I was like, "Hey man, I'm going to go on this show. Like, I fucking hate that guy Russell, and I want to go on this show. I want to punk that guy so bad. I want to put him in his place." And then to see that season end with Eric's monologue talking exactly at the heart of the issue, saying exactly what was going on, which is, why should we reward someone who acts like this because they're sitting at the end, and not someone who acts like that? They both got to the end. And I thought, wow, what an excellent television program. What a brilliant, amazing thing where the power actually does shift. And it's such a great representation of life. It's not just about it's not just about getting to the top. It's about how you get to the top. Because if you get to the top by being a piece of shit, it's just not as valuable, is it? It's not as worth it. And in watching Russell beg Natalie beg her at the reunion, beg, please, I'll give you $100,000. Please let me have the title. And Natalie just be like, no, no. And then he doesn't learn his lesson. He does it again. And it's like, okay, cool. I love this show. This is the best show ever. I want to do this. I want to play on this.
So I have to ask, how do you feel about when Russell burns Jason's socks?
Yeah, that's some stuff that, like, if I found out that's what happened, like in the edit, like if I'm watching the show and I see like, oh, that's what happened to me out there, and I was uncomfortable for 30 something days because you burned my socks on day 1. That's not gameplay. That's just being a dick. And you didn't need to do that. That didn't help you in any way, really. It's just like, and Jeff says this himself. He's like, I don't want to see bad people on the show anymore. I don't want to see people like that. I'd rather see, and I know that the fandom goes crazy for this. Let me piss them off real quick. I would rather see good people that are put in positions where they have to do bad things than watch bad people be bad people. And one of the reasons is we have enough bad people out there right now. They're like running shit. And it's like, cool. I've had my fill of watching bad people do bad things. So I don't need to watch that on my reality TV right now. I'm fine. I would rather not have that, actually. And I'd rather just enjoy watching good people do bad things.
So we have to put a pin in that concept for when we come back to Rick and Joe. Mm-hmm. But let's knock out the rest.
I can't wait to fucking talk shit about Rick.
Yeah, we can hit on one more thing from the Vatu tribe, and then we can head over to Callow. The next thing I want to talk about is Rizzo's positioning on this tribe, because Rizzo's in an interesting spot. I think he's an outsider of that tribe. There's really that core 4-person alliance of Stephanie, Colby, Q, and Genevieve running the whole thing. Rizzo's on the periphery, but they're still making him feel included. They're roping him into the entire bag search with Aubrey. Rizzo doesn't see it that way, though. He believes that he has successfully found his way into the majority alliance, when in reality, they're just using him because Colby and Q don't have their votes right now. But I feel like you had a similar experience on the Lagi tribe with your handling of Star, where Star was the outsider, and she was going to you guys with information on the idol. So I want to hear from your perspective, like, how do you handle being in the majority, but still making those players on the periphery trust you?
There is no majority until you go to tribal.
Okay.
That's how I treated it. Okay. So for me at the time, it was like, okay, listen, Star is, I'm working with Joe. I definitely wanted Joe and Thomas as the people that I wanted to work with. And obviously Thomas had Bianca, Joe had Eva. And so for me, it would have made sense for me to go and work with Star. The problem was Star finds this advantage. Star then shares that advantage immediately, and she doesn't share it with me. She shares it with Joe. Joe shares it with me, and then me and Star are running around the island trying to figure it out. Meanwhile, Star then tells Thomas and Bianca, and then tells us all, don't tell Eva. Now, the problem there for me is when I watch someone that I should work with treat their own secret like that, I'm going to tell 5 people on our tribe. 5 people are going to know, and we're going to keep it from one person. That's a recipe for disaster. If that's how you treat your secret, I can't treat my secret that way. Now, all that being said, none of this matters until you're forced to put pen on paper.
Okay. So you can have all these plans and none of it matters until that 3 hours that you have between the challenge, or 4 hours you have between the challenge and tribal. That's when all hell really breaks loose. That's when you see how panicked someone gets. That's when you see how calm someone is. That's when you see if you can actually trust somebody. So I don't know. I actually think that Rizzo's in a fine position there, because he does have to be used if they're going to have the majority. And once you use somebody like that, you could use them and then they can actually be ingratiated. And at the end of the day, I think that's what Rizzo is doing. I think they genuinely like the guy. He seems like he has made some good waves socially there. And we'll see what happens if they actually end up going to a vote.
RIZGOD, Rizgod baby.
God,
we're contractually obligated to say that every time.
branding.
Yeah, we're big Rizzo fans here. We're singing his praises that entire stretch on 49.
You look like his fucking cousin, I'm sure. You guys are related.
Dude, people keep telling me this.
Yeah.
I think after the first episode of 49, like Jack said the same thing. He was like, "Oh, Clyde, you have no chance at getting on Survivor now because they've already casted like a version of you in Rizzo." So I like the guy, but he kind of cooked my chances.
Dude, they cast like 9 of the same person over and over and over again. I think you're fine.
Yeah.
I don't think they give a shit. So it's like,
Clyde's
how many
Kirkland
of
Rizzo.
the same people? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So should we go on to Kahlo?
Yeah,
and
I'm down.
and the aquatic mishaps here. So Jonathan and Coach go out fishing and they're having a good time, or Jonathan's having a great time. And then we look over at Coach, and I would like to know how long he was floating there before Jonathan noticed, at least, because Coach has been floating in the water with double leg cramps for a while, which forces the swim team to bring over their boat and bring him to shore. And then he does say he would have died if not for Jonathan. You had A, swim team, B, Jonathan just spotted you, man. Like, thank you for not breaking kayfabe, but like, we watched the boat bring you in, Coach, you know?
Yeah, I didn't see Jonathan doing much there. One hot take I had on all this, and I don't know if I fully believe in this, but sometimes it's just fun to give a take just to throw out the idea. Basically, my hot take is that if you're out in the water at camp and you require the swim team to bring you back to shore, that should be a medical evacuation. Because if the whole idea with Survivor is that this is a simulation, that you are stranded out on an island and you require someone outside those confines to bring you back, you should get pulled from the game. Is that too crazy?
I mean, I
don't think so. This is for once. For once, I agree. I agree.
Look at that.
Actually, yeah, I hate everything you say out loud, and this I agree with 100%. Yes, absolutely. Either Jonathan saves you and swims you back in, or too bad, so sad. Like, looks like you have to get pulled. You needed help to get pulled from the game, and that's it. Sorry, buddy. Like, that's it for you. That's a crazy hot take, and I'm kind of obsessed with it.
You know,
I think the one flaw is the immunity challenge in 42, where they had to get all of the swim team out to bring everyone back to shore because they were stuck out in the water, except for Jonathan.
That's everybody. But that's everybody. Actually,
but then you would say like half the cast had a simulated drowning on that season.
Yeah. Well, you know, if you look back at, I think this happened. Did it happen in China where they literally had to move because the camp was so bad? Like there have been things before where tribes have had to have a full intervention because of atmospheric conditions. I kind of dig calling that an atmospheric medevac, right? Hey, you know what? Sometimes community can't save you. This one, like, I think anything where production has to interfere so that you can keep playing should count as taking you out. So if they have to bring you in and your teammate can't bring you in, if there's a storm that's too bad and it wipes out your tribe, you should be wiped, all of you. You know?
That I disagree with.
Like,
here,
let's go. Let's take it all the way.
That becomes the show Alone, right? And I like that show, but it's a different show.
That's a different show.
I think that this is a different situation. Coach put himself in a position where he was out there, and if he couldn't get himself back and he needed, that's a medevac because he was going to be injured, right? I think it's an interesting thing that I don't think they'll ever do it like that. I think that if you need a minimal intervention like that, they're just going to like, cool, that's it. But it would be interesting if like, hey, just so you guys know, like that could definitely be something that they explain on the rules day. Because when you go to you have pregame, right? You're there for 5 days. It's like, hey, if you catch yourself in a riptide or something and you're out there and we have to save you, that's a medevac. Just so you know. That would be an interesting thing there. But yeah.
And if your teammates can't save you, right? Because if Jonathan had come out,
or if they don't want to,
that would be brutal.
Oh, yes.
If Jonathan just waves and says goodbye to his number one ally.
Yeah, bye.
That's how Jonathan gets rid of people on his tribe. He just goes over to someone like Mike White and says, "Hey, let's go fishing together right now. Let's even up the numbers a little bit."
I think Mike White is in plenty of good shape, my friend. He's fine out there.
Yeah,
okay?
with that 6-pack.
Damn,
did not see that coming.
That dude has had a ridiculous amount of hard work put in order to be in that position. I love that. I love that guy said, you know what? I'm going to go out and play Survivor, and I'm going to go out and play Survivor. I am ready for this moment. I love that. That's so cool. So cool of him. He doesn't need to do that shit. This dude is set up for life, but his love for Survivor is just like beyond all of the rest of, it's just so cool. So cool.
And then the only other update I have from Callow is that Chrissy is kind of over-momming right now with the rest of the tribe. And I watched a lot of her preseason press, and going into 50, she was saying that, hey, when I was on Survivor Triple H back season 35, I didn't have the best social game, but that's because I was surrounded by this cast of very young people. And I think she was right. The average age of that cast is significantly lower than you'll see for many new era seasons. But after a couple episodes in, it might just seem like Chrissy is not the best social player at the end of the day. Granted, it's an edit. We're getting a very small sample size with her. But I feel like we're just getting more and more evidence piling up that Chrissy knows the ideal move. She knows how to like pin a target and put a vote in that direction, but she's just not the best at like making other people like her and want to work with her.
I want to throw out two things.
Charlie's already.
Listen, I think there's two things going on here. One, it's the edit, and I'm guessing Chrissy's not going to make it too far, and this is setting up so that we're satisfied with whenever she goes. And two, I think this is to set up Charlie, because he gets that great confessional of, listen, I love, an alliance with an older woman. It's my bread and butter, or whatever he says. Yeah. And it's a great little shout out to one of the angriest moments I've ever had watching this show. I'll never forget that one. That's probably the most furious I've been on the podcast. But
was Charlie not winning?
It was the betrayal.
Yeah.
That broke my heart. But I think that because everything she does in that edit, more or less, is like logistical conversation that when you frame it as over-momming, can feel like over-momming. Like, I think it's the edit. I haven't seen Chrissy's season, so I'm not terribly tied to her. But that's my take, is it's for Charlie's benefit.
I love it when people over-mom. Like, it seems like we got that from last season as well, right? In 49 with Annie.
Yes. Right? Yeah. In the pre-merge, that was like the explanation that they presented for why she got knocked out.
Yeah, she's just being like a little overbearing or whatever. When I went out there, I'm a coach, and that happens to me all the time, where I'm in a position where I can't help it. I just want to help. I just want to coach somebody. I can see how they can do it better. And even though they might be better than me at the thing, I can see how to help them. It's my natural like thing that I've been doing for so long. And so that's kind of what I see with Chrissy here, is like, she can just see like, okay, but this is how we could do it better. And let me help you by rubbing your leg. She just seems like she wants to be super helpful. And those are the people that I like. I appreciate that. But I definitely know that it can rub you the wrong way. But that's the other thing, is anything rubs you the wrong way out there sometimes. Like I was a dummy out there and decided I was going to like do breath work and meditate, like, maybe 30, 40 feet, maybe 100 feet down the beach, right? From Star. And in a deleted scene, you see me like losing my mind. if it was a regular day where I was not on a beach without eating and whatever, I just would have got up and walked further down the beach. But it wasn't. I was on Survivor, and I was also trying to make someone maybe look a little bad. And it's just one of those things where they cut it all together and you're like, oh shit. Like TK from season 47 to have a throwback, he probably didn't say bro every other word. He probably said it 10 times over 2 days, and they just cut that into a 30-second clip. And that's probably what happened here too, right? But good television.
Yeah. And when a player's on the bottom and you're trying to find a reason to vote them out, like you'll just latch on to anything to justify that reason, even if it's Chrissy just giving you some advice or helping you out when your leg is cramped.
Yes, exactly.
All right,
you're right. Second time you've been right today.
Listen,
it's an honor.
Yeah.
But now, gentlemen, the first season of Survivor, the only season I've ever watched that was not for this show, was David versus Goliath. And I did, that was my one during the pandemic, besides watching Blue's Clues, was David versus Goliath. And I love Christian, whatever his last name is.
Hubicki.
Thank you.
Dr. Christian Hubicki.
Ladies and gentlemen, the man shit himself on live television.
Yes, he did.
And now Clyde, as the true expert,
he shit himself on television.
I should have asked you this beforehand. Has this happened before on Survivor? On
to you,
camera?
Have you shit yourself, Clyde? Is what he's really asking.
Yeah, me personally, while watching the show or just in general, the answer is yes to both.
Okay, great. Yeah,
I can't think of another contestant that shit themselves. None come to mind right now. This might be the first that at least I can remember. Can you think of any?
That's actually shocking.
I don't think that they have shown anybody that has shit themselves on television, on national television. I don't know that anybody could poke fun at themselves in the same way. And shout out to Joe, man. Joe's delivery on some of these confessionals, and when he's lying there with his hands behind his head, that shit is so funny. And it's so funny because that's the stuff that I thought that was going to be shown from season 48. The number of times that Joe and I were sitting there dying laughing, just crying because of some shit that somebody did, and we were just rapping about it afterwards, was innumerable. It's everyday occurrence where Joe and I would just be hysterically laughing, and watching that made me miss Joe Hunter so much because it was so fun to see him in that type of funny vibe. That's what we had every single day out there. And then, of course, Christian's just hysterically funny, dude. He really knows how to poke fun at himself. The Office style looking back at the camera and you're not going to want to see this.
Don't come over here.
You don't want to see this. And shout out to the cameraman. And I don't know if you guys know this, but the Office was it the Office that stole some cameramen from Survivor?
Oh, no way.
Like they actually got documentary cameramen?
Someone fact checked me on this. I don't know if you can fact check me on this. I'm like 90% sure there's lore about The Office and Survivor and the way that they're filmed. And that shot from Joe to Emily as she keels over to laugh, that is very Office. That punch in style is very Office. And then we see another one that's also that same style where Joe is getting rocked in the hammock by Christian, and we see him through the netting of the hammock. And that style of shot is just, it's so reminiscent of The Office. And I don't know if it was influenced by that or what, but man, oh man, shout out to those cameramen. Their work is just incredible and really on full display here in 50. They really locked in and got some amazing shots for us. It was really awesome.
So here's what I've got. I've fact checked this. Randall Einhorn was a cinematographer who worked on Fear Factor and Survivor, was nominated for 2 Emmys for Survivor, and then went on to be the cinematographer, and he directed a bunch of The Office, and he executive produced the Muppets reboot that was so great, where it was like a workplace Muppet comedy. That was underrated.
There you go.
And he's executive producing Abbott Elementary, so he's crushing.
Oh, great,
guys!
That's awesome. Yeah.
What a career.
incredible. Oh
Shout
man,
outs
everything
there.
he's done.
But that
all right,
punch in, man, that punch in had me crying, laughing. Like so good. The way that they shot it, the way that they edited it, like the music that they have underneath it, the fact that you have Christian and Joe, who are such dynamically different people. It reminds you of like the high school track or the high school football star and the nerd who gets stuffed in a locker. Joe, instead of bullying him, is just kind of laughing with him. And I don't know. It was a great scene. Great scene.
And
I
Christian,
love that they opened the episode with it too. The
so
fact
good.
that like this is season 50, it's this monumental season, everyone's fighting for the title, and the first segment is Christian shitting himself on national television.
And owning it, like, it's all you can do in that situation is own it, and he owns it so well. So but Christian,
I'm reminded of the fact that the episode before he says, "My kids are going to see this," and he's so proud. Yeah, buddy, your kids are going to see that too, and hopefully they're proud.
Yeah, that'll be a birthday present he'll be getting for years. It's just stills from it. But Christian redeems himself later in the episode by finding the Billie Eilish boomerang idol. Now, obviously, the Billie Eilish boomerang idol is a new addition for 50, but is it conceivable that there's a producer behind the camera with a gun, and if you don't say Billie Eilish boomerang idol every time, they shoot you? Because it's such a mouthful.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
That's how it works. Yes. Hey, I gotta say something here, okay? Justice for Sia. Okay?
Yes.
Can we start the hashtag Justice for Sia? This amazing artist. And also shout out Sia. I love you very much. I've listened to the album that you recorded with 07 for over 2 decades. I've been a Sia fan. She recorded an amazing album with this group called 07. And I've been listening to her music since way before I was ever watching Survivor. And for her to support Survivor for as long as she has, with as many things as she has done, with as many people that she has hooked up, for her for it to all of a sudden be the Billie Eilish boomerang idol and not the Sia boomerang idol, not the Sia idol later or whatever, like the see that idol later. Come on, there's something there, right? The see your idol and we'll see a idol or something. Yeah, there's something there.
Absolutely,
I love Billie Eilish too, by the way. I'm a fan of Billie Eilish. Just so we're super clear, I like Billie Eilish. That's not the problem. But yes, production does tell you certain things that you have to say. Like we're not allowed to say Murgatory anymore because apparently that makes some people upset.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, that is. They named an episode Murgatory. They called it the Murgatory.
I know, but they told us not to say that anymore. And I get it. It makes sense. Like you're making a family show for a bunch of people. I told them that it should be we're on the verge of the merge. So it's the verge episode. Yeah. And I was convinced that I had named that episode and they did not use it. And I was very sad.
Or maybe an even crazier idea, just have a regular merge to begin with instead of this weird transition episode between the two of them.
No, I love the transition episode.
Really?
I love it all. Yeah, I love anything that's going to mess with the players a little bit more. I think that the big problem that you run into with a game like Survivor, if it's the same over and over and over again, and even the Murgatory has changed a little bit here and there, and I think that's important. So I don't care. That stuff doesn't bother me that much. The stuff that bothers me is stuff saying the same over and over and over again. That stuff bothers me.
Yeah, I think sometimes with like the verge of the merge, even there it was becoming like very consistent, where it was always happening at like the final 13, and half the cast was immune. So I think I agree with you. I'm okay if they mess with the format, but they just can't change it and then stick with that new structure for like 7 seasons straight.
Yes, I agree.
So how are we feeling about the use of the Billie Eilish boomerang idol? How do we like Christian's play here, passing it to Aubrey, seemingly hoping that they can work together in the future?
See, is that how you interpreted it?
That's how I took it.
It wasn't clear to me if he sent it to Aubrey with the intention of her getting voted out with it, or if he wants to work with her. Like the main takeaway that I got from his decision is that he knows that Aubrey will keep that idol a secret, which is advantageous to his game. If no one else knows about it, it will help him in some way down the line. But it's not clear to me if he's willing to rope Aubrey into that nerdy players alliance. Like she fits the archetype.
Like he's found
he's
the
gotten
perfect.
both.
He talked
both.
out the two options, and she can give him both. I mean, the nice thing is he's got, trying to do fast math here. He's got what, 16 options, 15 options
more.
Because it's just they have to be on the other tribes, right?
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
So is it? I think it's that. It's that she could come into the Nerdy Alliance, or she just, gets voted out next week and he gets the idol back, right? Like, I think it'll work out for him. I hope it'll work out for him, or it, karmically, he's just balanced out here after this episode.
And I got to give credit to the people who have found this idol so far this season, because I think players have planted them very well. Like last week when Genevieve found it, she sent it over to Ozzy, and then Ozzy's name is in serious circulation in the lead up to the tribal council. This week, Christian sends it over to Aubrey, and I think there's a good chance where Vatu goes to tribal, Aubrey's the one that's in danger. She's the one at the bottom of the tribe. So it seems like they have a pretty good idea of the strategic layout of the season. Maybe that's due to some level of pre-gaming or understanding of where these contestants are coming from. But it's interesting to see
50.
how people have clocked it so far.
Like, you're watching the All-Stars play. Like, there's not going to be everybody who goes out in this could be a winner in theory, right? Like, it's not, you're going to see the top of everybody's game. Should we move on to the big bullet here, Clyde? Do you want to take us there?
Yeah, the big feud of the episode. This is what I was most excited to talk to you about, because you have experience working with Joe. You know what it's like to work with someone that is honor bound, that wants to stay by their word. And this week we get a rivalry forming between Joe and Rick Devens. So the way that this comes about is that Devens pitches this alliance that doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things. It's this fake 4-person group of Devens, Savannah, Joe, and Ozzy. Devens and Joe then walk away to have a conversation on their own. Joe sees that Devens talks to Savannah, and Devens never tells Joe about this 4-person alliance. And that ultimately leads to this big argument between the two of them. And I wanted to get your perspective on this. You said that you were upset with Devens earlier in the episode. So I'm curious as to why you're more Team Joe here outside of your 48 allegiance.
Why am I more Team Joe here than Devens? Because, okay, Savannah and Devens talk. Hey, Savannah tells Devens, hey, go bring Joe in on the 4. Okay, cool, I will. Let's go to the water well, Joe. We go to the water well. Hey, what were you and Savannah talking about? Oh, me and Savannah were talking about how we want to work with you and Ozzy. See how easy that was, Devens? That wasn't hard. That's actually not difficult. That's actually not hard. That's actually not hard to say when you're pouring water.
It's in his best interest, too, to probably tell him about it.
Wait a second. Instead, you're like, I don't know. And then later, when Joe's like, hey, man, do you see how that's weird? Your response is, nah, I don't see how that's weird. What do you mean? I don't, that's not weird. Oh, okay. And then they're making Joe look like he's an honor-bound dude. No, man, it doesn't make any fucking sense. And if it doesn't make any sense, then maybe he's going home. He should be skeptical. So the painting Joe as like, oh, this honor-bound dude, I understand that's like the way that he was painted in 48. Joe wants to play Survivor 2, and he has every right to be skeptical of somebody who just lied to his face for no good reason. That's happened before. And in those, and by the way, not to just to Joe, but to anybody who's playing Survivor. So like him like cocking his head sideways, like, okay, but why didn't you just tell me then? Like, why does that? I checked with Savannah. Savannah tells me that you were supposed to bring me in on the alliance. Like, why wouldn't you just bring me in on the alliance? So for me, it seems like Devens clutching his pearls after the fact, where he had the meeting, he didn't want to work with Joe. And instead of telling Savannah, like, I don't want to work with Joe, and then having that conversation and letting it be awkward and whatever, like, I just don't want to work with you. Okay, he bungled that. And then because he bungled it and Joe got upset, then he got upset that he bungled it. And then in confessional, rips Joe a new asshole, which is fine. Like, that's what you're supposed to do on Survivor. And it's hilarious because every single one of them says the same thing about Joe, which is he's such a great guy. He's just so hard to play with. I thought you guys were like the best players of all time. What you mean? An honor-bound guy is hard to play with? How is that hard to play? That's easy to predict.
Like when you worked with him on 48, did you find that he was someone that was difficult to play with, or did you think he was a pretty stable ally throughout that season?
I thought he was a pretty stable ally throughout the process. I think that I also knew, okay, Joe is a little bit like the Titanic in that he is very stable. And when you get the course set on something, okay, cool, you're chilling. If you're going to change course, okay, well, that's going to take some time and some massaging. And this game is fast for sure. It's sometimes you got to make quick moves. But if you understand the players that you're playing with, then it shouldn't be like that hard to go and have that conversation. And Joe came at Devins hard, right? Joe like drives at Devins, and Devins was not having it. He didn't like the fact that he was driven at like that, as if that's never happened on Survivor. And it's funny that like that type of gameplay is always considered playing Survivor, but this type of gameplay is considered like, oh, I'm not playing or so hard to play with. I have a hard time with that rhetoric. I think that's bullshit. I don't think that's not a legitimate criticism of someone's gameplay. It's more a criticism of your own inability to make the social connection or make the move or whatever. But maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just a homer. Maybe I'm biased. Maybe that's possibly me. Okay.
There's a line that's drawn here between kind of the Devins school of thought of we need to be able to betray somebody on a moment's notice and we need to move fast. And that's good, Survivor, versus Titanic, direct. And if we do that, that's bad. It's like the Devon side has said, oh, and part of it's definitely the edit sort of drawing these big black and white lines over the gray.
And it's also the brilliance. I saw Drew. I hate to jump in here, but please. I saw Drew on the RHAP podcast. This was, I think, right before I went out for 48. And he had this brilliant moment where he's talking about how each season sets their own morality. And the morality of each season is very different. And we see Devins kind of talk about this in the confessional, that everybody has to adjust to Joe's morality on the season, that Joe is really trying to set the morality of the season. And Devins and Christian and the rest of them really do not like the way that he has set the morality of the season.
And that was something that Christian talked about in his preseason press as well. He said that when he was on David versus Goliath, a major reason why he went out at the final 7 is because Mike White was the one writing the narrative. He was writing Christian to be the underdog of the season, which made him this major threat that was taken out. Now Christian kind of finds himself in a similar spot where he's not the one writing the script. Joe is trying to drive the ship in that single direction. Jack, and you were saying something though before we interrupted.
In this I love that concept of writing a morality for the season. It makes me want to see, and maybe we get this next week with this tribe swap. Put Coach and Joe in the same room. Because their definitions of honor are so different. Because Joe's is so clearly like the spirit of the game, play hard, recognize hard work, and then Coach. I mean, this is my first time watching Coach, but that, honorable move at the marooning challenge, I'm dying to see them interact in this way, because I think that the whole, we're writing morality in a normal season of Survivor with new players, that can be, it's a clean slate and you're all coming in and you're going to figure it out. But this, you've got so much baggage. It's the Philosophers Convention of Survivor, right? Yeah. Episode title done. Because you're putting. I
also think in the same vein, the idea that people play this game that requires you to lie, cheat, and steal with honor and integrity, and that they're lording that over you. I want people to know it's not like Joe doesn't know that that's a line. Joe's not absent-minded of the fact that you have to lie, you have to cheat, You got to steal, you got to do things. That's not absent-minded to Joe, but it is part of a good narrative if you want people to work with you and think that you're going to be loyal to them. That's an important part of a gameplay decision. And I think that people don't respect that because they just want to see the lie so bad, not recognizing that a lie is I'm playing with honor and integrity. That's why Coach is so entertaining, because he says that shit and then he does stuff like he did and then he tries to justify it. And so the delta between what Coach says as honor and the way he acts is there, and that's what makes it great television. And I think that same thing is something that you can do intentionally, and that's a perfectly rational, reasonable way to play the game. And at the end of the day, Joe didn't catch a vote.
Yeah.
Joe didn't catch a vote. Devins didn't catch a vote. And instead, we see Savannah go home, and it's like, all right, well, Ozzy caught a vote, and Savannah catches a unanimous rest of the vote. And so no matter what you think of Joe or Devins in this situation, if you think both of them were stupid for kind of coming to this huge blow up, and apparently it was worse than what we were shown on television, according to Savannah's exit press.
Wow.
It also doesn't matter because they're both still here. And next week we get a tribe swap. And so it's like that blow up really didn't end up being anything. And I'm kind of reminded of the last time we saw a blow up maybe this big, which is Owen and James in season 43. I don't know if you guys remember that.
I was thinking Liz and Q at first.
Oh,
but
yeah,
Owen and James is another great example.
Yeah, like those types of blow-ups. It's interesting who ends up going home when blow-ups like that happen.
And I guess the last thing I'll throw out regarding this rivalry before we get into the actual vote itself is that I agree with you that Devins makes the mistake of not just telling Joe about the alliance in the first place. But I think Joe also has a blunder in taking it so personally and calling him out on it. Like if I'm Joe and I find out that Devins is not roping me into this plan, I should be able to connect the dots and say, this guy's not working with me. And instead of going face to face with him and creating this tension, I'd rather go and try to work behind his back to gather the numbers in another direction, because now the lines in the sand are obvious. These two are not going to work together. And I don't know what the swap tribes are next week, but there's a very, very real reality where this nerdy alliance is split up and Devins finds himself on a tribe with Joe.
Okay, I agree. Okay, wait. I agree. I agree with you. That is certainly a great tactic. The problem with a tactic like that is now you're tactic based. Now you're someone who has tactics like that, right? Which makes you a bigger threat. And this is one of those things that as you're watching the game, you're going, why don't they just do it like this? But when you're in it, emotions are running higher. And
for sure,
when you are the tactics person, you have a much bigger threat level. Joe's already got a huge target on his back. He just came off the season. They saw how he played. They know that he's America's sweetheart. A lot of these people want screen time for sure and edit time. Like those are big targets on his back already. You add to that like he's going to have this strategic undercutting and pretend like he's nice to Devin's face. He's also going to have to play that off, and that's probably not the best move for Joe. It might be a move that I would do. That's something that I think makes more sense for a player like me. But a player like Joe, I think gets further with just being who he is than and like being predictable. Like that's part of gameplay. It's like, okay, cool, but I'm a loyal and predictable player, and people are going to want that out here for sure.
Yeah.
If I saw that happen, I would want to work with that. I would be like, okay, cool. That's cool. I'm going to go work with it.
And I think there's another dimension to this whole, why didn't he tell me about the alliance thing, which is Joe and Savannah have a relationship. They've established that they're both like competitive people. Mm-hmm. We've seen that made it on screen. So I think something that didn't make it on screen because it was a more compelling edit was at some point in there, Joe had to be thinking, why didn't Savannah tell me about this? Mm. We have to talk about how Cirie is literally magic and has just, erased everybody's memory so they forget she's Cirie. But I do want to give Savannah her flowers with Cirie's strategy, because Savannah reads Cirie perfectly. She figures it out. The whole conversation about Cirie shifting the target away from Ozzy, all of that. Savannah goes, I think this might be happening. And now she's gone. I just
you know what's so funny?
I don't get it. I don't know how Cirie does it.
I tried to do the same thing that Cirie did. I tried to do the same thing. I tried to play that way. If you watch the episode where I go home, the thing that you don't see, I mean, if you're really paying attention, you see it. But when I'm pitching Kyle, I pitched Kyle Eva. I also pitched Kyle Mitch. I pitched Kyle Joe. I pitched Kyle myself. I pitched Kyle, and I pitched Kyle Camilla. I went through every single person that was left and gave him a pros and cons list so that I could eventually get him towards Mitch. But let's go through all of them. Let's go through why you would vote out me. Let's go through what Kyle did, which was clever, which was just go to Joe and tell him that I pitched Kyle Joe. So this is what it sounds like what Cirie was doing. Cirie went to Savannah and was like, okay, why would we do this? Let's do this pros and cons. Why would we do this? Let's do pros and cons. Oh, it just doesn't sound like it's the best idea to get rid of Ozzy. I'm down to get rid of Ozzy, but it doesn't seem like the best idea. I did the same thing. I like that move because it's like, okay, cool. Let me just present the arguments and let's go with the best argument, right? And meanwhile, you are, without the other person knowing, getting them to give you the best argument. You're getting them to come up with the reasons why it shouldn't be this person and why it should be this other person. And that's what they leave with. And it's really hard to recognize that someone's doing that to you, especially if you have the verbal tricks that Cirie has. So watch her as she says, when someone says something, like she'll even repeat it back to them and like, oh, like ask more, like ask a question without asking anything. And doing that forces someone to keep explaining. And by the time they're done, they've inceptioned themselves. And it's really expert level stuff. And she does it better than anybody.
And it's incredible that those people then can't sit there for a minute and go, you're on the Mount Rushmore of this show. Why am I listening to you? Like, I love Cirie so much. Like, it's just
you wouldn't vote her out
amazing.
Either. You wouldn't vote her out either. I mean, you get snowed by her too, bro.
Show.
You'd sit there and you'd look at those big Cirie eyes and be like, whatever you want, mama. I'm done. Whatever you want.
Yeah. I wouldn't vote her out. At least at this point, I wouldn't vote her out. But this is what she does best. Like, we just watched Panama over the summer. That was Jack's first exposure to Cirie. And she does the same thing on that season. She's on the bottom of that Kasaya tribe.
So good.
She finds a way of finessing herself into the majority and then in the power
Finesse
seat by
is the right word.
So one of the best social strategy players in the history of the show. She definitely deserves her flowers for this week. Are you guys good to get to the actual vote itself and like everything piling on Savannah? So it's a unanimous vote.
Did we even talk about the challenge? What happened to the challenge? I don't remember.
Jack loves the challenges. I don't care about the challenges.
I don't even remember what happened. I don't know. So it's fine.
At this stage of the game, there's too many people at this point. Well, you can talk challenges when it's final 8. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but sure.
I'll talk about challenges for a second. I'm going to talk about the snakes at the end of the show, but we'll get to that.
But this ends up being a unanimous vote against Savannah, so she is sent out, second person voted out of the game, second winner to be sent off this season. And I guess one question that I had for you guys is like, what did Savannah do wrong here? Was she someone that just went on to this season in a difficult spot, or is there something she could have done to course correct and have a little bit more longevity?
I think there's a lot missing. I think obviously edit, like whatever, but let's take the edit let's take the edit at its word, right? I think for Savannah to have really needed to do something different, I don't know that she did. I think that she's in a really tough spot on that tribe. I think that it's not like she pushed super hard and then it got turned on her. It's not like she didn't push hard enough. It's not like she wasn't involved. It's not like she didn't try and make alliance members. It's not like she didn't try to make moves. She was walking that tightrope pretty well. And sometimes it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it just ended up on you, man. Like it just ended up that Cirie was really able to move the target off of Ozzy. And what's surprising is that Savannah still ended up voting for Ozzy. So that means that Cirie didn't tell her to vote for Ozzy. That means that Devins, Joe, and Christian convinced her, right? I didn't watch the exit press, but Devins, Joe, and Christian must have convinced her that Ozzy was the move, and she voted with them, and they all turned on her.
Yeah,
that's what I would assume.
I don't know who exactly convinced her to write down Ozzy's name, but I do agree in the sense that she was just in a really difficult spot here. You
really
had
tough spot.
The Nerd Alliance of 3 people, the Cirie and Ozzy partnership, and that only leaves Joe and Savannah on the outside. And when it comes down to it, you're in this 3-tribe format, 24 contestants. If I'm on that beach and I don't know when a tribe swap is going to happen, I'm thinking there's going to be a stage of this game where 2 tribes are going to tribal council and only one of us is going to be safe at a time. Joe's one of the best challenge competitors on this entire cast. You kind of need to keep him around, even though he has the beef with Devin. So I feel like she was just in a really difficult spot. Even if she came back from that journey and told everyone, I got a vote block, this is for the tribe, you can trust me. I think the combination of her having that reputation as a winner, her being an unknown entity because they didn't watch her on her season, and her holding an advantage would be enough for her to get eliminated either way. So I don't think Savannah's performance on 50 did a lot to really change my perception of her as a player. No. I don't think it went up or down after this season.
And she deserves so many flowers for reading Cirie, right? She clocks that. She had 2 weeks between 49 and 50.
Yeah, I think 10 days.
Like 10 days, like no recovery time. And this wasn't one of those votes where you go.
See her edit. She didn't get to see her edit. Yeah. She didn't get to see this is what it looks like when someone lies to you. She didn't get to see any of that stuff that everybody else got to see. She didn't get to deal with. She didn't have any of that information. And
she has to do it all.
All kind of blind. And so she knows they all know. She knows they all know. She knew they all knew that she won. The only way that she would have been able to be out there and not know is if she would have stayed out there and no one actually knew or whatever. But the Survivor community is small and people yap. People from their season or whatever, it gets out, and then you're stuck. You got to tell everybody.
Yeah, Savannah is the first, but I did have Clyde check this before the show. She will probably not be the last of a group of people who get to have a very unique experience, which is having your first ever torch snuff from Jeff on 50. And so there are 3 others, Clyde?
I think there's a bunch of other people. Charlie is in that category if he's sent home. Chrissy could be in that category.
Rizzo.
Rizzo still had his torch snuffed after he lost fire.
He did because he was fire.
Yeah, it's any finalist. Kyle technically still on the list of players to never have his torch snuffed, which is an interesting fact. But there's a couple other people who fall into that category.
So it's a weird category, but it's funny how many there are. Joe?
Yeah, Joe's another one.
Joe hasn't had
wow, it's like half the cast. It's almost like they're, really successful.
I've had my torch snuffed. It sucks.
Did you get a hug from Jeff?
No, I did not get a hug. I did not ask for a hug. I did not get a hug, actually.
It's a weird moment for a hug,
Yeah, it's not the move for me. I love Jeff Probst very, very much. He's a dude who gave me an awesome opportunity, and I certainly would love a hug from Jeff. But I found that moment was probably not the right moment for that. I was
you're holding a torch. He's holding a thing.
It's not the vibes. And it's always just so awkward when people do ask for it, unless they've like on season 50, especially with people who have given so much to Survivor, then it makes sense. People who really know Jeff, especially some of these players that are from the new era or from the old era, they really were there to watch Jeff grow up. Like they watched when Jeff went from host to executive producer, and really they have seen him kind of grow as a human. They know this guy very well. Whereas when you're on the new era, it's like, you don't really get to know Jeff in that way. He is, he is the big head honcho, and he's very cool. He's very kind. He's always super cool when the cameras aren't rolling or when they are. Like he's very much, the only difference really is that he swears more when the cameras are off. That's
so crazy to me. I can't picture that because everything I see from him is the clean version.
So, because Jeff's like, all right, we'll give you a minute to strategize and let's get it on. Woo! And the next line is like, let's fucking go. This is fucking it's just
That's great.
He's got so much
That's
energy.
what you need.
It's so energy. Cool. You do need that energy, man. He really has it still first of all, I don't think I ever heard him have to be like, all right, so today we got this, sorry, let's try that again. Never happened. Never happened. The dude's a pro. His monologue at the beginning, they cut actually from our season, was all about surfing. And I surf, and I was so pumped about that monologue. And, it was perfect. It was pros. Just like everyone's just like fully geeked and didn't miss a beat. And that stuff, I'm a public speaking coach. I know how hard that stuff is. I know how hard it is to get the lines right and to have the emotion right and to not have to do it again. I don't know how many hosts can do it like that.
Yeah.
That dude definitely can.
All right. So let's talk about the nerds playing their little prank.
Yeah, their little drop.
So Christian and Devins have this scheme.
Drugs at Tribal.
They've hidden this piece of paper, piece of cloth or whatever, with the intention of potentially using it in the future, right? That's the goal.
Yeah.
And Christian fully falls again.
Yeah.
The pratfall is really, he sells it really well, and then he acts all dazed as he's walking off, out of Tribal, and Devins hides this thing. I hope this pays off, man.
They would. I really don't think they would have showed it unless it's going to pay off. I think they just would have cut it. If it didn't happen or whatever, I think it's got to pay off. I agree.
That's true.
Yeah. I'm just curious to see if it's used more as an offensive or a defensive tactic. On the defensive side, if you think you're in danger, you can stand up, grab that, and potentially push votes off of you. Or if you're trying to target somebody else and you want to make sure that they are vulnerable and they don't have anything, you could tell them before Tribal Council that there's an idol right there. And if they make the run for it in the lead up to the vote, maybe that's a sign that they don't have anything else on them. So I'll be interested to see how they incorporate this into their game. The most interesting scenario is no influence from Christian or Devins at all. And someone just finds that on their own accord and they have no clue where it even came from. But I think it's just the directions to the. I think it's just the directions.
Yeah, it's really tucked in there. I don't think someone else is going to find it.
I don't know. Maybe Jonathan, he's got that bird's eye view when he stands up. He can look down and maybe see it right by the campfire.
Here in there.
Yeah.
Oh,
man.
His
beard's in the way.
Should we go to winners and losers?
I'm down. Where do you want to start?
Shauhin, your pick.
Ooh, winner of the episode for me is probably Aubrey.
Okay.
She's now sitting there with an idol in her pocket, and she has a tribe that is not necessarily the biggest fan of hers right now. And I think if you know that and you have an idol, that's a big win. That's someone who gained a ton of power in the episode for sure. So I think as far as winner of the episode, the person who, if I was, sitting there, which person would I want to be after this episode? Aubrey or Ozzy is probably the one, but Ozzy didn't get anything this episode. You know what I mean? He got both his things first episode. So yeah, I'd say Aubrey.
Nice. I think that's a great pick. She looked like she was dead to rights coming out of the premiere. So I feel like she might have had the biggest jump in her winning potential between the first and second episode. My winner, I got to give it to Suri. Great episode for her. Push the target away from Ozzy. On top of that, I don't think we even mentioned this earlier. She convinces Ozzy to give her the extra vote before the Tribal Council itself even happens.
No, I think it's important to say, I don't think she convinces him. Ozzy just did it because she's proven herself to be such a valuable ally that he goes, I really like you. Here you go. She doesn't have to do it.
Most people would say, hey, if I survive this Tribal Council, as a thank you, I'll give you this extra vote. Ozzy has complete confidence in Suri, and I thought it was cool that Suri had that opportunity to flip the vote back on Ozzy, and she didn't do it. She genuinely trusts this guy, so I'm rooting for that partnership moving forward.
My winner as well. I
think you guys are probably right too. Yeah, Ozzy, Suri's a great pick. Comes up with an extra advantage too, and it's just gifted to her and moves the vote, and good winner of the episode.
The first advantage in her Survivor career, and it might be one of the worst advantages that you can possibly get on Survivor. I think the extra vote is in terms of the tier list of strongest to weakest, it's probably towards the bottom. You occasionally get someone like Marianne actually using that for a strategic benefit, but the vast majority of extra votes don't really go anywhere. But if someone's going to do it, it'll be Suri.
which is honestly a great play by Ozzy, because that means, hey, you are trading this basically useless, like one of the most difficult advantages to use well. You're giving it to lock in your alliance member, and you're giving it to someone who's going to use it better than you probably would. And I think that's a pretty good move by Ozzy too.
All right, so who's your loser?
Someone else go first. I got to think about this.
Yeah.
Clyde?
I'll give my loser to Chrissy. I think she's just had a pretty rough edit through the first 2 episodes. Granted, that Callow tribe hasn't gotten that much screen time in the grand scheme of things, but the only things that we know about Chrissy through these first 2 episodes, one is that she wants to go after Dee, who I think is one of the best overall players on this entire cast. I think she had an incredible win, and I think she's going to win this battle against Chrissy. And now it seems like Chrissy's losing allies in other aspects, people like a Charlie, who aren't as interested in working with her. So there just isn't a lot in Chrissy's edit to give me confidence in her moving forward.
Here's a bold one for you. My loser's Joe.
I knew that was coming.
I love Joe. I mean, 48 is, people on the internet hate me for this take, but 48 is my favorite New Era season. It's the only New Era season in my top 5. It's such a good cast. You guys were all so great.
Also,
I love Joe.
Jack, the internet is a very bad place.
It's true. It's
because it's one of those things that I learned in having been on that season is like, there's about 25,000 Survivor internet fans, like hardcore on the internet, on Survivor, socials and the Twitters and all of that stuff that are active. And those people, the version of Survivor that they want is just the opposite of 48. Like it's the polar opposite of what you see in 48. But the people that aren't necessarily just all over Survivor Twitter that still really love Survivor, I think that season 48 resonated with them in a really dynamic and huge way. It's not the season that the people that are internet,
the loud people. Yeah.
The loud internet people. Now, I'll also say the way that our brains work is fascinating when it comes to the way that people talk smack. It sticks out in our brain way more than anybody saying something kind. When someone says something kind, it never goes viral.
Well, I mean, we have a text thread where all we do is screenshot the hate and send it to each other.
Yeah.
And if you're one of those people, don't listen to this and don't comment.
Yeah, I'll be minding my own business at work, and then I get a message from Jack, just a random hate message that we got.
Yeah.
But so Joe's my loser because this edit makes me really worried that he's going to be sort of portrayed as in sort of that the morals are developing for this version of the island. Mm-hmm. And Joe's version of an honorable game is being framed as kind of a losing mentality. And then we've got the fun of Rick and Christian on the other side. And that framing, the tribe swap could totally shake this up.
Change everything. Yeah.
But where it sits right now, if these tribes stayed the same, I don't think he would have 3 weeks left. Hopefully the tribe swap mixes things up and he can find someone else to work with. But right now, the edit makes me really nervous.
And I think there's also a concern in that it's not just Devins that is not trusting Joe right now. Like Christian brings up that idea of the Joe-tation, having a rotation of people going and placating Joe to make him feel comfortable within the majority, even though he might not have a lot of sway in that group. So I think we're entering some dangerous territory with Joe where other people are starting to believe that honor-bound version of him, not just Devins.
Weirdly, I actually think that this makes the loser Christian.
Okay.
Really? Okay.
Hear me out.
Speak on this.
It's early in the season, right? And so now people are looking at Joe like he's this honor-bound dude and this season isn't gonna whatever, and so we can work with him. He's not a threat. Whereas you look at Christian, he's doing the most. Him and Devins just did this whole thing. We're talking about episode 2, you guys.
Yeah.
And they're doing plans like this. Like, are they blowing their wad a little early? Maybe. And Joe's okay. Maybe he's got a little bit more. Maybe it's accidental. Maybe it's on purpose. I don't know. But like, maybe there's a little bit more strategy there than we give credit, and a little too much strategy on a season like 50, where people are definitely going to be aware of the shenanigans. Now, how long they can keep a lid on these shenanigans, that's the thing. But I think a lot of Survivor fans, they love these big moves, and I respect and love. They're awesome. It's fantastic. But sometimes they're not great gameplay. Sometimes these big moves, these big flashy things that you do, they attract a lot of attention to you. And when you have a lot of attention on you, you go home. And Joe might not have a ton of attention on him now. Might not be one of those guys that you have to worry about as a threat to win the game right now, which is what you want. You want to not be thought of as a threat to win the game right now. You want to be thought of as a threat to win the game at Final Tribal. That's it. Like the day before Final Tribal is when you want everyone to think you're a huge threat to win the game. And I think right now, I don't think anybody on his tribe right now is thinking, I would vote for Joe for $1 million. And now that Joe has another 20-something days to convince them otherwise, whereas the opposite is true for Christian. The opposite is true for Sari. The opposite is true for, Devins. Those are people that everyone is looking at like, oh man, they really have an opportunity to win this game. And so we have to vote them out. So I think my losers, the guy who shit his pants on national television. Yeah. I'm going to go with that. I think that's a pretty solid loser pick, actually.
That's an interesting take. I feel like Christian's been the main character of season 50 so far.
He has been.
The first two episodes.
Being a main character early can be tough.
Not a good thing. Yes, this is my point.
You don't want to fight.
Are we talking about winning the game, or are we talking about making excellent television? Because I think like Christian and Devins are excellent television for sure.
Yeah.
But I think like their winner stock is peaking right now. And this is not where you want your winner stock to be peaking. And like this also, not for nothing, but narrative development, this gives Joe a great narrative. If this starts to switch throughout the season, like remember what we thought of like, this is obviously a very different thing, but Andy in season 47, episode 2, we thought Andy was a loser. Like they painted him as a full-blown loser. What did this dude? Why is this dude even out here right now? And okay, we saw a lot of development out of that man over the entire season. And like, okay, cool. He seemed to be a threat to win the game. That might be contested by people who were on 47, but to us, that's what it looked like. So I wonder how this narrative starts to develop around Joe. I wonder if we see some new things happening from there. And look, at the end of the day, I love me some Joe Hunter. So
yeah, fair enough. Well, to wrap up here, really quick honorable mention to whoever makes those giant heavy snakes and geckos and things. That's my honorable mention for the week. If that's production, great. And if it's some really obsessed craftsman in LA,
no, it's production, bro. It's the art department. The art department makes all that stuff. They're best insane. Time. And seeing that stuff in person, seeing that art department stuff in person is so cool. It's one of the coolest parts about being on Survivor. You get to go out there and you find like, wow, they built all this for us. Like they built all this for us to go play. It's so cool. And those structures that are floating in the water and the dives. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk shit. I have to talk some shit real quick before we leave.
Please.
Maybe we can cut this and put it earlier. But
let's hear it.
I want to talk shit on Jonathan's dive real quick, and Ozzy's dive, and David from my season's dive. And I just want to say that I had the best dive in the last couple seasons of Survivor, and I don't think anybody would have expected that. Okay, and Jonathan overshot.
I think Kevin had the best dive on 48.
You're right. I apologize. I have stand corrected.
That is Kevin my favorite dive
on season 4, like ever in the history of the show. But yeah, Jonathan overshot his dive, and I actually meant to message him about that, a screenshot of his entry and being like, what happened here, buddy? But he did go all the way down on one breath like Savannah, which was impressive. Very cool.
Jack normally does an honorable mention. I'll do a quick dishonorable. I'll give it to new era winners. I thought the winners would have targets on their backs going into this season. I didn't expect us to lose 2 of them through the first 2 episodes. Granted, Kyle's elimination had some wonky circumstances around it.
I definitely don't think Kyle was going home anytime soon, by the way. It did not seem like I think that Kyle was
in a great spot moving forward. So it's just tough. I feel like they went into this season with targets on their backs. They were separated onto different tribes. And I don't know, like, I hope we see Kyle come back in the future. I hope we see Savannah get another shot. But the way production's talking right now, it seems like they're spreading out these returning player seasons. So when that time eventually comes, there might only be so many winner spots available. So I just hope this isn't the end of the road for them.
Wait, drop the T. I didn't hear this. What did they say?
Yeah, I think Jeff said in the last week or so in an interview, they asked him about returning player seasons, because I think a lot of people have had this theory that 54 would also be a returning player season. And he kind of poo-pooed the idea and basically said that there's a lot that goes into it. And he thinks Survivor's, it's best when you have new players and you're building that new society every single time, which I do understand the take. But if you look at just how successful 50 has been so far, I think the fandom is ready to have more returning player seasons, especially when we just went through a 9-season stretch of only new players. I think there are so many people who are primed to come back at some point, but we'll just need to wait and see.
I think that's an interesting thing from Jeff. I think part of that has to be, it's got to be hard to go through that with the people that you like, the people that you love, that want to come back, and you have to tell them no. And then you have to deal with the press, and then you have to deal with all that stuff. Like, there's got to be a personal element there that's got to be super hard for production to deal with. I can't imagine. I mean, dude, I wanted a phone call. Like, I was bummed. It makes sense. Like, and I at least have, like, you know, and some of these people are unhinged. Some of these Survivor players are unhinged people. Like, it happens. Yeah. Like, that's why they're on television, right? So I can't imagine that that's super fun. And then he's right. I mean, dude, pre-gaming is a huge thing. A lot of us go to all the same parties. We all know each other. And so I certainly get that. I would like him to do, Jeff's not listening to me about anything, just so we're super clear. But I would like, even more than returnee players, to see themes come back, so that we don't have 51, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, but instead we have, you know, heroes versus villains 2, or and that could be a fresh people. Those could be fresh people. You know what I mean? We don't need it to be returnees. Like, have it be people that have villainous jobs or whatever, right? Heroes versus hustlers versus whatever. Just like investment bankers, you know what I mean? And like school teachers.
There's a long list of villainous jobs I can think of, but I don't know if they'd make great survivors.
But like, I think that would be the thing that I would even be more interested than seeing more returnee seasons, is seeing a return to theme, so that I can separate some of these seasons. Because I'm a huge Survivor buff. I'm a huge Survivor nerd, and I have a hard time remembering who was on 41 versus 42, or 44 versus 46. 48 versus, and that's my season, and still, like, I have a hard time keeping track. Whereas I remember who was on the, you know, David versus Goliath season. Like, that's for sure an easier recognition point. So
it creates an easy narrative going into the season too. Like, I think people were rooting for Christian on that season, partially because he was one of the biggest Davids on the cast. But that's everything we got for this week. Shauhin, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Is there anything you want to plug for any of the viewers or listeners?
Yeah, where can people find you?
Certainly you can find me on the internet and figure that shit out on your own. But if you like Survivor, if you're listening this deep, you should sign up for dropyourbets.com. That's the real thing to plug here. If you're this deep into Survivor lore, and you're this deep into a Survivor analytics podcast, you should be on dropyourbets.com, which is the fantasy league that I started with my friends on a spreadsheet back in 2021, 2022, when I was first watching the show. And the cool part about it is, instead of a league where you like draft and like that's kind of it, this is a league where you're active every single week. You predict who's going to go home. Now, after the merge episode, that's when things really kick off. You take the points that you earned, right? You earn points for surviving a week, or finding an idol, or an advantage, or whatever. But then after the merge episode, now you can start betting those points on who goes home next. Which is cool, because now if your people go home early, you're not out, you're still in all the way to the very end, and it makes for huge comebacks. So someone who was in 45th place in my league of 100 last year got 9th overall and won prize in the very last
picks.
week, because they predicted accurately who got 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st. And so they were able to jump all the way at the end. Whereas if you're in any other Survivor Fantasy League, if you're in 45th, you might jump to 42nd. You might jump to 40th.
Yeah.
But you're not getting into the top 10. It's game over for you. And that is bad game design. Good games shouldn't be over until the game is over. And also, great game design requires that it's fun for the most people for the most amount of time. And that's not how Survivor Fantasy Leagues are set up right now. They're set up in a way that, like, the most important day is before the season even starts. This league that I run, the draft doesn't actually happen until 7:30 p.m. Eastern time before episode 3. So now that you've watched a couple episodes, you know who's got what going on. You've seen at least a little bit of everybody. Now you can draft and go and play. And you now also, dude, not for, like, the other thing is, for a guy like Clyde, who's like, I know ball. Okay, cool. Put your points where your mouth is. And the episode that matters the most, which is the last episode, is the episode where you have the most information, as opposed to most fantasy leagues where the episode that matters most is episode 1 before you even have any information about anything that's going on other than pregame interviews, which, while they are interesting, are useless strategically. Everything changes the moment that people hit the beach. And I designed this league because of that frustration, because of the frustration where I was like, dude, this sucks. I lost Vochi in the second episode, and that's it. My fantasy season is over. And I also hate having to not draft the same people. So you can draft 4 people, and any 4 that you want to root for, you add another person at the merge. And that way you're actually drafting people that you care to watch, not just like, oh, who's left? Because it's this random league of 6 people, and I can only draft 3 people, and it's just bad game design. So dropyourbets.com.
This sounds awesome. This sounds a lot better than mine.
Recap emails. I actually have to go write my weekly recap email for them. Bi-weekly recap emails written by my fat fingers that come out every other week to kind of update people on what's going on in the game from my perspective. It's a $10 administrative fee for the league to join the league, but that goes to like prizes and web design. A very good friend of mine, Liam, designed the website, and it's gorgeous and cool. And we have all kinds of different things that are coming for that. And so that's if you want to play legit Survivor Fantasy, you want to put your chops up against the best of the best. We have a couple Survivor players that are in there, including myself. Klein is in there, and maybe the Survivor Analytics guys will be in there too. What do you say, guys? You want to join?
I need to check this
awesome.
out. I think
we have a traditional league set up right now. We've had it before where we had one team that lost 2 or 3 of their people in the pre-merge, and then you're just kind of cooked a month into the entire season. So I think it's a great game design. You made a great pitch for it.
It's a great idea.
Yeah,
it sounds like a golden goal in the PWHL, like anti-tanking turned into a full game, which I love.
Yes, come join. And now you can play with the Survivor Analytics boys too. Clyde and Jack in the Drop Your Bets League. Also, we're going to launch sub-leagues as well so that you guys can launch like your own Survivor Analytics sub-league within the larger league overall. And that way you can, make videos and stuff like that. That's kind of the big idea here that I'm kind of running with. So
that's really cool.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be cool.
Awesome.
Some cool stuff. And if you're in Orange County or Southern California, I have a watch party on March 25th in Irvine, California. We got Tiff coming. This is the official announcement. Nobody knows that yet, but we got Tiff from season 50 coming. It's going to be an absolutely epic event. It's family friendly. We got Survivor games. You can play the snake game, the Survivor puzzles, and we got food included. It's fucking awesome. It's a really good time. Family friendly, and I'm swearing like a sailor, but whatever. It's fine. Come on.
That's all right.
Come through.
Yeah, it's totally
Kids aren't listening to this. It's all good.
We're like way over time. How long were these episodes supposed to be?
It varies. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
We got a lot of info, so I appreciate it. Yeah.
A blast.
Good stuff. Thank you so much for joining us. Jack and I will be back next week. Big week next week.
I want to piss off the last people that I'm sure are still listening real quick with finishing with this. So we're going to finish with this. Fried chicken and waffles. Fried chicken and waffles. They're savory. They're sweet. They're what you want to eat. They're savory. They're sweet. They're what you want to eat. Yeah. I just want to make sure that I piss off the internet a little bit more because they hated that. And Love you guys.